It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our Daily Gun Show. Come to live weeknights at midnight Eastern to, in this case on Fridays, wrap up the week. Other days of the week we do other topics. This is a live show, hosted live on X and on YouTube on Friday nights. And we do this live because we value the participation, the interactivity of the internet. So please feel free to be part of the show. And feel free to chat. So a little distracted. I was actually going to start early today because Gizzard stopped his show early. And then I started reading an article and totally lost track of time. So now I'm kind of getting everything back together here. This week, however, is going to be a little different than other weeks because I have not put everything together like I normally do. I got started earlier in the week, but with the holiday, I suppose, I'll blame it on the holiday. But actually, I just tried to get a lot of stuff done this week, and this got put on the back burner until the last minute, and then it's the last minute, and it's over. So why don't we start off the week? Normally, we would take a look at the presentation on what's it called? On the social platform called Substack. There it is. Then we'll usually put that same information on our Patreon blog, and then we'll put that information in the description of this video. However, this week, that doesn't exist, so we'll just be going straight to the sources. The first source I use for Second Amendment-focused news is the NSSF, which is the National Shooting Sports Foundation. That's the Firearm Industry Trade Association. It's developed back in the 60s to be a gun firearm industry group, and over the years they've taken on more and more responsibility, including they host SHOT Show every year since the 80s, since 1981, I think. And we're looking at one of their resources, which is an email they send out on Fridays called the Government Relations Update. My co-host is very, very hot this evening. What's up, buddy? Need to get him a little pool. All right, go back there. Go back there. Gave him a bunch of kissies. We'll see if that satisfies him for a while. Otherwise, I don't know, maybe I need to take him outside and spray him with a hose. It's that kind of heat today. Got up to 111 in the shade. I don't even want to think about what it was in the heat. But little guy spent too much time outside, I guess, and he's all super hot right now. All right, so we're going to start off with this government relations newsletter. If I were to print this, I would say it's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe even 6 pages long. There's a lot of stuff here. And what they'll do is they look around at whatever's been going on in the news, and then they cite a bunch of articles, and they usually print a good chunk of the article, more than one paragraph of the article in the newsletter, in the email. So I usually have to whittle all that down for our show because I'm not interested in just reciting what other people have written in their articles. But the points, the topics, are usually good bullet points. So let's try to whittle that down as we're chatting here today. So it looks like the Supreme Court declined to hear the challenge to the Illinois assault weapons ban. Let's see. I have not even heard any, editorial about that, so I can't really comment on that one. But it looks like the decision to not review the Court of Appeals 7th Circuit decision is disappointing. And according to whoever they quoted here, that does not mean the Supreme Court will not review the matter after final judgment. So, because they haven't issued a final judgment, it hasn't really ended, I guess. And that's from Larry Keene. Okay. Next thing in the list is NSSF submits comments opposing the BIS interim final rule. So the BIS is the Bureau of Industry and Security, and they've been essentially throttling firearms exports and ammunition exports through their regulatory ability, and that's stimulated politically, I guess is what I say it. So that has been an ongoing issue with the NSSF. I don't think too many people are talking about it, but I think it has to do with Biden not being happy with the idea of small arms going to Israel and wanting to be able to be able to tell whoever we export guns to what they can do with those guns. In other words, they can have them for defense, but they can't just have them. And since that's not a thing, you can't tell other people what to do with the gift. He's just decided to not gift, to not offer aid in the forms of small arms. And I guess not only is that annoying to the people who could use them, but it's also affecting the manufacturers who, I'm assuming, tooled up and made extras for the concept of sending them to other countries. I'm assuming that's why it's an issue, but they don't really get into that. Hey guys, is out there? Welcome. All right, so the next item in the bullet point is NSSF adjusted NICS background checks for June. This is something that NSSF will include often. It occasionally gets cited by other people when these numbers come out. In my opinion, it's a BS number that isn't scrutinized enough, so I don't like it. But here's what they say. It is now 59 months in a row that the FBI NICS system verifications have exceeded 1 million checks processed for sale of a firearm. That's according to the latest figures. And they say it's a NICS adjusted data. And that's what I'm not sure about, the NICS adjusted part, because if there's states that require universal background checks, and that messes with the numbers, because if a grandfather wants to give his granddaughter a shotgun or a revolver, or both at different times in a universal background check state, that requires that they go and get a 4473 every time a gun is transferred from one person to another. So people that comply with that are going to add to the numbers, and until they tell me that these adjusted data numbers here remove that, then I don't agree with these numbers. And how do they know that? There's no way. There's gun shops don't say, the 4473 doesn't say this is a transfer between two people or this is a sale. It's just a sale, because it's the way the stupid process works. The gun comes from grandpa, goes into the gun shop, and now it goes immediately out of the gun shop to the granddaughter. Well, the gun shop to the granddaughter is all that's recorded. So that's why these NICS numbers, I don't dig them. I don't agree with them. They're giving us this idea that there's a lot of new gun owners, when we might just be dealing with a less, even like a normal amount or less gun owners than normal. It's just that people in universal background check states are doing, just living life. We have when a new state comes online with universal background checks, and granted that hasn't happened in a while, but it did happen during the time that NICS has been paying attention to this. Every time a new state comes online, we don't know what their normal rate of gun transfers are, because no one's ever tracked such a stupid thing. That's like saying, how often does someone borrow a lighter, or how often does someone, what else does something borrow from somebody? How often does somebody borrow a flashlight? It's ridiculous. It's not possible to know that number. So we don't know what the normal number is. There's no way you could take out the normal amount. So anyway, I'll continue to challenge these numbers. I'm the only one. Everybody else likes to just look at these numbers and act like we have a ton of new gun owners. I'm not against new gun owners. I just don't want to be lulled into a sense of fake, a fake situation. Anyway, they go on to say, that is a steady signal from America as we approach an election season that the right to keep and bear arms matters to law-abiding citizens. So it's a nice narrative that, people are buying guns because they love their freedom. But in reality, everybody that bought new guns in 2020, if you ask them, bought it out of fear and because they hate people and they're scared. So, go hate people and be scared all you want, but that shouldn't be the only motivating thing for buying a firearm. Firearms are cool and interesting and mechanical, and there's science and there's chemistry in there. There's physics in there. There's all kinds of neat things that you might like about a firearm that have nothing to do with fear and hate and all the violence and bullshit. So anyway, that's my editorial on the NICS adjusted background check stuff. Next, we get the 4th of July and America's turning point. The 4th of July celebration may ring a little brighter. So I guess they're just telling us about the 4th of July. I'll move on. And then they get to a section called Federal News. White House makes counter accusations in bid to block congressional oversight. What is all of this? Rachel Cotton, deputy counsel to Biden, in response to requests for information about the collusion between the White House, Office of Gun Violence Prevention, and groups, gun control groups, to strong-arm Glock to alter their handgun designs. Glock was later sued by the city of Chicago. John, whoever, head of the Bloomberg-funded gun control group, Everytown, bragged on X the same day Chicago filed their lawsuit. Federal offices leaned on Glock to alter their designs, indicating the head of Everytown had inside information. All right, that's a long-winded everything there, but it's interesting. So I'd like to see some investigative reporters on our side. We got Crump, and that's it. Do we have anybody else who's an investigative reporter on our side? There's Steve Gutnowski or something from the Reload, but he doesn't do any research. He just says stuff. He just repeats what everybody else said all week, every Sunday. There's Colion Noir, and he'll occasionally do something that's interesting, but most of the time he's just saying stuff after the fact. So it'd be neat to have some investigative reporters, like a fleet of them. What would you call them? Like a squadron of them? What are you doing down here, buddy? You're very distracting to the show today. Does everybody hear him down there breathing? He's breathing and walking around in a bunch of bags that fell over. So I keep all the the bags from the store. I just take those bags and wad them into this little area, and that's where they go until they become a garbage bag. A whole bunch of them fell out of there, and now he's decided to walk around on them to be as noisy as possible. Why is ATF repeatedly violating firearm trace data laws? This is an interesting one, and I've only seen two references to this, and they might have even been on X, which maybe is invisible, but I don't think I've seen anything on YouTube about this. Let me know if I'm wrong. But this article says someone at the BATF believes it's easier or more politically convenient to roll over to gun control activists in the Court of Appeals Ninth Circuit than it is to defend the federal law protecting trace data. For the second time in less than a year, the ATF chose to ignore the Tyhart Amendment and instead released to the public. The Tyhart Amendment was, okay, blah, blah, blah. So this was... I forget what information this was. I guess it's just firearms trace data. And I thought the Tyhart Amendment was actually more than that, but it must be covered by the Tyhart Amendment. And that's something that with all the number of things that we have to deal with, then it's hard to pay attention to so many things. But this is an important one. This is... gets into like California. This is, I think, the most recent one to publish the entire list of CCW holders from the database. New York has done it twice now. I think Michigan also done it. And did Illinois do it? And maybe even Arizona did it. So there's instances where bureaucrats, in order to be punitive to people who do things that they don't like, will do stuff like let all the data be released. And ATF literally has a law called the Tyhart Amendment in place that tells them where they can give information. Of course, they have other laws that tell them they can't even collect data, but the data they do collect isn't available. It's only for law enforcement use. And doesn't seem like a big issue. Obviously, no one gives it that much big, no one's really too concerned about it. But I think it's got issues in the way that the changes the Overton window. That's the way to say it. Like it changes public perception of firearms, and for those reasons, I think it's worthy to pay more attention to these. T-Heart is how it's pronounced. Okay, thanks. Gizzard's from the state where that guy's from. Todd T-Hart, American politician who served the U.S. House of Representatives for Kansas, 4th Congressional District from 1995 to 2011. Originally, it was to monitor or, I guess, filter the number of people who were asking the ATF for the gun shops that were the problem. And I think the concern there is that if you tell criminals which gun shops are criminal, you're just helping them be criminals. So if the ATF is investigating a gun shop, because back in the day they used to investigate gun shops for selling guns illegally, not like today where they do a zero tolerance, and most of their agents are enforcing paperwork issues and giving people notice to shut down their business or bothering so much that they and choose to end their businesses for the harassment. But back in the day, the ATF would actually go after corrupt FFLs, maybe somebody from a gang who was given the money to get an FFL, and then they would be a fake FFL. That happens. And when the ATF is only paying attention to paperwork errors, they're not going out after those potentially violent issues. And that was where I think the idea of this law was that if the news was going to go around reporting which gun shops were the ones under investigation for being the worst, you're just telling criminals which gun shops to go to until they get shut down. Or maybe it had to do with just offering information for stuff that's under surveillance, and that's just counterintuitive. But either way, I think it was from that angle. And now it's talking about our trace data, which is not really even the same thing, since trace data no one's purchased a gun for trace data. Trace data is, hold on. I'm thinking the initial 4473. I guess trace is when a firearm was used in a crime and they're tracing who purchased it. That information is available, but getting it straight from the ATF in a database is different than a summary of the numbers each year, which is what the ATF typically offers. All right, the next bullet point for federal news is Chevron overruling impact analyzed for firearms regulations. So the Chevron doctrine was, I think I heard the best description of it is allowed federal agencies to enforce and regulate based on their interpretation, because the courts would say, as experts in the field, the government agency must be, I shouldn't say it that way. I guess the courts would say that because they're in this field, the federal agency must be an expert. That's the way what used to be. That's what Chevron said. It said, well, since the federal government agency is involved in this, they must hire experts, therefore they must be experts. Well, what this new ruling from the Supreme Court on this is essentially said, no, you just because the government agency is involved by no means they're experts. It certainly doesn't mean they hired experts. And even if they did, doesn't mean the experts are correct, that their perspective is correct. So instead it says, the Chevron doctrine said that, in fact, the government agency cannot be interpreted as the expert in these situations. So it has nothing to do with guns on the surface, but on the same time, it takes away a power as a regulating and authority from the federal government that is going to be sweeping. I think wide sweeping, is that what we said? So anyway, it says, legal scholars are still poring over the Loper-Bright decision by the U.S. Supreme Court that brought down the Chevron doctrine, or the deference to allow federal agencies to fill in the gaps of laws passed by Congress when executing those laws. Unless the BATF is strictly adhering to the underlying statute when crafting its rules, which has not been the case, the odds are good that the rule will fail, is Cam Edwards' explanation of it. So the Chevron it's a new thing, and it's far-reaching, way beyond guns, and it'll have a big impact on the way that the federal government is able to regulate and then how they regulate. So we'll see as time goes by how this will affect guns, but we'll also get different perspective from the lawyer types as they have time to put some effort into this one. All right, the next one is city finances weapons of war, yet denies firearm industry banking services. So Citigroup, the international banking giant worth over $300 billion, is suffering from a case of cognitive dissonance when it comes to their banking policies. Anyway, this is an article. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Citigroup, I guess, is saying they're going to continue to refuse to provide services to firearms businesses, but then they're also going to allow the coupon code or whatever it's called, the industry code for gun shops. I can see why people are against that. It's not a big step against gun shops or against gun owners' rights, but it is a push, and it's unnecessary, and it gives the other side a win that's not necessary, and it's good for us to be able to fight multiple battles at once. It's not our biggest battle, but we should win it. It's pretty simple to win that one. And it doesn't accomplish anything. That's another reason it's so easy to win, because even if it went through, it would accomplish nothing, because bad guys are still going to be bad guys. And if you're worried about good people snapping, then what is caring about what credit card they use to buy something have anything to do with anything? If you're worried about people snapping, help them. So it does nothing except show that they're the tone deaf of the other side, the focus on removing guns from law abiding, in 100% focus on that and not on the core issues that cause violence, which is a bigger and better fight, which they should be, that should be illustrated. And then nothing about any awareness of how many of these even are instant, how many times this might even be an issue, what this might solve. It's going to solve a slight fraction of the issues that go on out there. And again, for all kinds of reasons, this should be easy to push down. The difficult part is dividing our ranks to find people to do stuff like this and still be able to multitask on other things without making it look like this is a big deal. It's really not. All right, the next thing in the national news is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service debuted a new federal and junior duck stamps. So it says hunters, birdwatchers, stamp collectors, and artists celebrated the 2024-2025 Migratory Bird Hunting and Conservation Stamp, commonly known as the duck stamp. So I guess new stamps go on sale each year that show off different ducks, and some people like to shoot them ducks, and other people like to keep the habitats available for them ducks and take pictures of them or something. And then other people probably eat ducks. I don't know. Just everybody likes ducks, I guess. So these aren't stamps like a hunting permit. These are stamps like you put them on an envelope. But it's the kind of stuff NSSF is monitoring. Then we get to state news. Massachusetts legislature conferencing to rob gun rights. Committees from Massachusetts House of Representatives and Senate are conferencing with just 3 weeks left in the legislative session to hammer out a gargantuan bill that would cost law-abiding gun citizens their Second Amendment rights in the same state where the Revolutionary War was born, where the British forces attempt to confiscate gunpowder from colonists. The bill, called an Act to Sensibly Address Firearms Violence Through Effective Reform, the SAFER Act. So, sensibly address firearms violence through effective reform, SAFER Act. Or Senate Bill 2572 was called tremendously devious by Gun Owners Action League's Dim Wallace. The bill would ban privately made firearms, redefine a firearms industry member as nearly anyone who hunts or owns a gun, even those who makes t-shirts or posters, allow for public nuisance lawsuits, and an outright ban on possession on modern sporting rifles, which is some way of saying AR-15s. The bill's discussions are being held behind closed doors. However, NSSF is monitoring. So that is frustrating as hell, because Massachusetts, if anybody's been paying attention, has been definitely dealing with a lot of push here. Other states have pressure. Other states are getting some attack. But Massachusetts, it's really been a long, continuous grind. We know at least one person booked out of Massachusetts instead of staying to fight. But those that are in Massachusetts that are keeping the fight, more power to them. Support those folks. And why aren't there sister states? Why aren't there sister cities? Why aren't those of us in other states helping those in states that are getting such abuse? There's something like, oh man, hundreds of thousands of gun owners in Massachusetts, and it's got a massive population. So they really have a fight there. And there's must be some strategy, because they're not, the other side, the anti-rights side, is not pushing this much effort into a state like this without a reason. They pushed on Oregon and they got pushed back. They pushed on Washington and they got some, right? They made some headway. They pushed on Nevada, kind of got some headway, but not a lot of resistance. I also don't think they bothered with Nevada too much. They pushed on Colorado and they made a lot of headway. They got a little resistance, but they're killing that resistance. Illinois, was Minnesota, right? So there are other states where they're pushing and getting away with some crap. But Massachusetts is a unique situation, and the fact that it continues to go on, it's like having a dumpster fire on the side of, not dumpster fire, a junkyard fire on the side of town that everyone is just giving up caring about, and they just know that it's there and they know it's a bad thing, but they just deal with the smoke. It's sad. We shouldn't be. That's the reason it's happening, is because we as a community, as an organ, as a industry, not an industry, but as a community, I guess, we don't have a way to resist that yet. And I say yet because it's not something we can't cure, and probably have done it before. Backyard tire fire. Hope it's not that close, but it kind of is if you live near them, huh? It's really difficult for me to conceptualize Massachusetts. I don't even know if I've been there. I must have been there. No, I don't even know if I've been there. I know I've been up to New York, and it's further than New York, so I don't even know if I've been there. But if I was, it was a long, long time ago. But it's real easy to not think about those little tiny states that are smaller than counties. Well, smaller than the counties of the big states. All right, so the next one, California is a big one. Like, California is hard to miss because it's sitting right here, and it's as big as like 3 other big states. California begins excise tax on firearms, precursor parts, and ammunition. So anybody who's been paying attention knows that on the 1st of July, the 11% tax went in on California. And I'm assuming we'll see some resistance to that, I hope. We've got one from Florida. Florida proposed protection from hunting and fishing amendment on the ballot. Florida legislator has proposed a right to hunt and fish amendment in the Florida state constitution. The amendment will appear on the November 5th as Amendment 2. The amendment will require a supermajority of 60%. Let's see. This section does not limit the authority. Well, way to tell us all about it and not tell us what the amendment even does. All right. Protection of hunting and fishing. Do we really need that in the Constitution of a state? I don't know. Next up, National Shooting Sports Month coming in August. So we got Shooting Sports Month coming up next month. Expect a few people that are paid by NSSF to tell you about it, and a couple of people who think it's a good idea will tell you about it, and everyone else will ignore it because they don't get paid to talk about it. But would we be better off with months, like National Shooting Sports Month, like National Month of the New Shooter, Month of Violence Prevention, or something like that? Greiser is saying lawsuits already filed on the California tax. It's good to hear. I'm pretty sure they knew that it was coming, and they had those lawsuits essentially made, right? Oh, that's the name of a band. I had no idea. NSSF's Project Child Safe launches Arizona safety campaign. NSSF joined with industry partner Gunsight Academy. Oh, wow. Amazing. The Yavapai County Sheriff's Office and representatives of the Prescott Police Department, Prescott Valley PD, okay, whatever, and a bunch of other places bring Project Child Safe in its message of preventing unauthorized access to firearms to Greater Prescott. NSSS have provided thousands of firearm safety kits, each including a gun lock and safety brochure, to the community for distribution to gun owners and their families. The local partners will take advantage of a week-long Prescott Frontier Days, the world's oldest rodeo, really, to distribute Project Child Safe cable gun locks and firearms safety literature. Well, I don't know if Prescott is the world's oldest rodeo, so that would take some explaining, because I've heard of at least 3 other places that say they have the first rodeo. Would it have happened in Prescott, Arizona? A rodeo? Was there cowboys in Prescott, Arizona when you had Kansas and Texas and Oklahoma? It's possible that we had some out here, but we had a lot of sheep out here. Anyhow, this isn't necessarily in Prescott for sure. It's not exactly cow land. I mean, yeah, they do put cows out here for $5 an acre, but that's all another story. So my question is, I'm not a big fan of Child Safe. Anybody that knows me knows I don't like Project Child Safe. I'm fine with NSSF. I think Project Child Safe is stupid. It's run poorly. It's bad marketing, but whatever. But what's better off? Having Eddie Eagle run around? You know, I'm not saying Eddie Eagle's perfect. It's old. It's from the 80s. It's Marion, what's her name's entity. But it's existed. It kept going over the years. And essentially, it's just Eddie running around telling kids to tell an adult, right? Leave them alone, tell an adult. Pretty simple. 5 steps. Leave them alone, tell an adult. And it's positive. Hey, we're telling kids. Here's the thing. See a gun? Leave it alone. Pretty simple. NSSF Child Safe is nagging on gun owners. Remember to keep your gun locked up. Remember to keep your gun locked up. Right? Well, guess what? We keep our guns locked up. The child's accidents are down unprecedentedly over all time. Like we do nothing but go down till there's hardly any child accidents, hardly any. So the only ones we ever see are the ones we get beaten over our heads on the media with. And NSSF says, lock up your guns. Well, guess what? We have millions of guns. We have more guns than cars. We have millions and millions of guns. If we didn't lock up our guns, it would be plainly evident that there would be accidents happening all the time. So Project Child Safe, in my opinion, should be marketing, look at how many guns there are and look how few accidents. Gun owners are super safe. Gun owners are safer than, and they should say pool owners. Gun owners are safer than people that own chainsaws. Gun owners are safer than, and that should be Project Child Safe. Be proud as hell about how safe gun owners really are. Challenging the concept that guns are dangerous, because they're not. Guns are just another dangerous thing. They are as dangerous as anything else that's 8 pounds and able to fall onto somebody. Anyhow, we'll keep going. Project Child Safe in Arizona. So there you go. We could have Kid Safe Foundation, which is an actual growing organization that's empowering kids with awareness and giving them the knowledge. But anyway, well, that's because gun owners are so safe and gun owners understand responsibility. We should be championing that. DJ saying he hasn't heard of a child accident in a long time. Yep. All right, so next we get NSSF promotes safe firearm storage on NBC News. I'm assuming that's what it says. So I guess because everybody likes to hate NRA and the media has figured out that everybody hates the NRA, then now they every once in a while go to NSSF. Now, are they going to NSSF because they care so much and they know that NSSF is a valued knowledge center? No. They just know that NSSF is 4 letters that kind of sound like NRA, and they know that they can hate them. So if you want to hate somebody, you got to make other people aware of who it is you hate. I think they're having this guy on so that they can start saying he's the new Lane LaPierre. So if he's going to get on there and say things like, let's see, the one time in Michigan where there was an accident, then they interviewed this guy about it, even though he's not in Michigan and he has nothing to do with any company that makes safes or anything. He said, we have strongly advocated and encouraged that people act in a responsible manner. All right. But the Supreme Court has said that laws that mandate firearms locked, so therefore not accessible, violates the Second Amendment. What the fuck? Keene told NBC. So he's taken either in context or out of context as bitching about the Second Amendment. Horrible. So NSSF does a lot of good for us, but they're also not perfect for sure. Let's see. New reporting requirement for Type 7 and Type 8. The BATF has released new reporting requirements to assist its efforts in investigating and combating the illegal movement of firearms across the southwest border. The ATF is now requiring all licensed manufacturers and importers, in addition to dealers and pawnbrokers who are already required to do so, in Arizona, California, New Mexico, and Texas, the international border states with Mexico, to record information concerning multiple sales of certain rifles. ATF's new guidance states you must submit to ATF reports of multiple sales of other dispositions, whether at one time... Oh, stupid. So essentially, it's just requiring manufacturers to do what they already make dealers and pawn shop owners do. So anybody that lives in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, or California, if we buy 2 guns at a time, that information is given to the ATF. Because 2 guns is trafficking. If we buy 2 guns in 5 days, that's trafficking, and that information is given to the ATF. Gun shops have to run around worrying about if they sold a gun to us today. Did they sell a gun to us in the last 5 days? And was it a 22 or not? So tremendous amount of burden, stupid, worthless reporting, so that the ATF, who sends guns to Mexico gangs intentionally, can screw up everything and create the whole thing that they're even complaining about here. Let's talk about lack of focus or lack of scrutiny on a situation. The border states are a big chunk. It's not the number one priority, but don't get me started. I've seen how much effort a little gun shop has to do to keep up with this stupid regulation that does zero, that does absolutely nothing because it's stupid. And what would happen if it was good? You think cartels can't go to the next states up, to Nevada, Utah, Colorado, and all the other states that are in the middle of the fucking country? It's just stupid to think that the criminals don't have the resources to drive another 3 hours to go a little bit further than a border state. It's stupid. NSSF shouldn't be talking about it. They should be bitching about it, but I guess they're not political, so they're not gonna. I'll bitch about it for them. But that's everything in the newsletter this week. So I like it. Like I say, I'm a big fan of NSSF unless you get to some of the things like things I think are stupid. So then we get to this week on what was on YouTube. And normally I have this all figured out nice and fancy, organized between what's Second Amendment related and what is just regular gun stuff. This week I don't have any of that in there, so we're just going to go through my watch history. You can all find this by going to your YouTube and clicking on history, and it'll just show you the stuff that you have watched. So let's see. So we've got a video coming from the Mosin Museum. Chris was at GunCon. Gizzard just had his Fowl Territory show right now. Let's see. It was an interesting show. I don't know. It cut short. It was a premiere instead of a live. Normally these guys are live. This one was a premiere, and it was 2.5 hours, but it just cut off right at the end. I don't know why. But if anybody's paying attention to the lone survivor story and the new information that is coming out about that whole, I'm going to say, debacle at this point, very interesting to see history happen and then get, I don't want to say revised, but get updated in real time. So if you're not aware of the lone survivor or the American sniper situations, then yeah, there's a lot of revelations coming out about those, about the accuracy of those stories, let's say. And you know, when somebody writes a book, that's the story. But until everybody else involved, and in most of these cases, it's dozens and dozens of people. Once those people can sort of get to a microphone and talk about what happened, then you know what actually happened. When you get a consensus of everybody involved, you get an idea of what really happened, and not just a perspective from a single point, like most books are written. So anyway, that was another interview with a ranger who's talking about a lot of that stuff. I didn't see all of that though, so I'll go back and watch that one again. AR Guns had a show. Was that this morning? No, it was yesterday. It looks like Wilson Combat had Masada Yuban. I didn't actually watch that one. I don't know why it's in my list. Then the Ironclad had a conversation about the Asian super cartels and interesting stuff. Not too many people think about how Mexico had a bunch of slaves from China since the beginning, since Mexico's been a state, or since Mexico's been a country. So since we had the railroad and we were bringing over people from China to work on the railroads, Mexico was doing the same thing. So there's been Chinese slaves in Mexico for a long time. I don't know the story on when those people stopped being slaves and started just living in Mexico. So there's an influence of culture in Mexico. In fact, a bunch of Mexican food is from China, if you look at it and you start tracing that stuff. But that's been a part of their culture for a long time, just like Chinese culture has been a part of our culture for such a long time. So the same thing with the cartels and with the drugs and stuff. So there's definitely, it's not a new relationship between China and Mexico. The new explorations of that relationship recently with fentanyl and everything. But in this case, this is talking about meth and the cartels of Southeast Asia, or whatever you want to call the gangs of Southeast Asia that use methamphetamine as their currency or their thing, are a massive, massive thing. And in the last couple of years, it's changed because of fentanyl. But this is an interview with a journalist who was embedded. I don't know. He went to all these different Southeast Asian countries to investigate these meth factories. And these meth factories are every bit as big and developed as any other pharmaceutical factory, but they just put them in regions where nobody's going to do anything about it, like where it's completely gang owned, and they'll just create this factory in the middle of nowhere. So these aren't like what we used to see with the drug cartels in Mexico doing stuff under a tarp with 55-gallon drums and sticks. This is pharmaceutical factories with 100% legit everything, making pharmaceutical methamphetamine to distribute to throughout Southeast Asia. And then that practice or that like methodology is also what's being exported, not necessarily the drugs themselves. Our methamphetamine is made in Mexico. The stuff that's in the United States, they don't bother shipping it across the Pacific, in other words. But the methods of operation and the distributions, and not the distribution, but the organization of the gangs and stuff, a lot of that came from these Asian meth gangs. Anyway, kind of interesting. I don't like change agents or Borderland, really. Everything on Ironclad is halfway good, but their editing is horrible. Like they do interesting stuff, but I can't wait for these people who they've interviewed to be on other shows where they don't edit the shit out of it, because Ironclad might as well be a 15-minute commercial during the Super Bowl. It's so edited and chopped up that it just leaves you wanting, period. Like you know you didn't get the whole story. So anyway, it is what it is. Hopefully we'll see more from these people that have more insight about the cartels. Barbecues out there, welcome. Let's see, we got a bunch of people joining tonight. It looks like a pretty fair share. It looks like almost an even split between the X and the YouTube. Of course, people on X are always scared to say anything, but we've got people on the YouTube joining us tonight. Chris was the first one from Ohio. Welcome. Agrizer also participating in the show. Gizzard, thanks always for sending people over after your show, and also for the plugs for the Gear website store. G23 is joining us tonight, and DJ, thanks. And like I say, barbecues out there. If you want to be called out, you got to put something on screen. Otherwise, I do not typically tell people, the people I know that are watching, that don't show up on the screen, because then I would show you the technology I have that tells me that we're not supposed to show that. So what I will do is run a commercial for our Gear website store. We're capitalists. I make a shit ton of money right now. But my dilemma is, do I even bother with this? Bother with 2A? I could let somebody else do it. We have such awesome organizations that do everything for us. Why should I even bother? Well, we have Patreons, and they throw some of their hard-earned money at the concept of our projects. We have a bunch of websites that do stuff. We have this show and the podcast that do stuff. We do things on the social platforms that hopefully do stuff. And people like to see that happen. Over the years, this would have been gone if it weren't for the Patreons, but now the Patreons make it possible for us to spend time on this stuff each and every week. So we want to thank those capitalists who are involved financially with our situation here. But if you for some reason hate Patreon, there's some people out there that hate it. Or if you just hate the idea of subscribing to something that is valuable to you, then maybe you want to buy something from our store. And we have a whole store you can buy stuff from, made by us, for us, with designs mostly made live. Like, unlike other people that just pay somebody $5 to come up with a design and then pay somebody else $20 to make a shirt out of it and make $5 in the process. We involve everybody with the design, with the concept, and with the reason for it. And then if you're interested, I'll show you how you can set up a store and do it yourself. Because we're not trying to gatekeep anything here, but we are trying to pay the bills. So if you'd like to be part of that as a capitalist, here's one way.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.
And again, thanks for the folks that do purchase stuff over there. Let's see. Now we have... Did we already say the overnight happened on Wednesday? Foss hosts an overnight show, unscripted, and pretty sure it was a pretty good one. Then Ken Blanchard, I watch his stuff occasionally because he's kind of stopped doing, well, he has stopped officially. His podcast doesn't exist anymore. Excuse me. His podcast doesn't exist anymore, and he has quit doing advocacy. But he plays the guitar every once in a while, so if you want to listen to... I don't know if these are original songs. Yeah, there was a bracket on the Mouse Party. Or on the overnight. Wait. No, there was a bracket on the Mouse Party this week. Firework bracket. Bottle Rockets won. Spoiler alert. Anyway, I don't know if Ken Blanchard is playing his own songs or if these are covers, but I'm thinking about contacting him to use them as intro licks for the show. Let's see. So we have Four Boxes Diner, who, as you can see, is one of the only people I bother with listening to. He's a little bit annoying, but he's fairly concise. He puts a lot of stuff out there, so it's a lot to listen to. But he talked about some of the recent victories and attempts to summarize them in his way, 23 minutes long. Then you get, this is an hour long. Oh, this is an old one. I'll delete this. This was from a while back. This one was an hour on Ironclad talking about how the gangs in Mexico are using call centers and calling up, like, basically old people in the United States who don't pay attention to what's going on and prey on them using all kinds of phone scams. And it's sad. So tell your parents, tell anybody you know that's susceptible to getting phone scammed, that, you know, what's appropriate to talk about on the telephone and what's not, and when it's appropriate to say, let's continue this call later after I've had time to think about it. Sad how they can prey on people's programmed responses. Is that the way to say it? Like, they pretty much know what they're doing at these call centers, and they don't need to follow through necessarily. They just need to get your info, and then you're in trouble. Anyhow, then we get to this one, how the Los Zetas cartel changed organized crime. This is a fairly interesting one. I'm going to complain the same I did with the Ironclad. On Borderland, he's a guy who was in, I don't know what he was, a Marine or something. And then he's in Border Patrol for a long time. And he had interesting jobs. So he interviews people and he's got an awareness, but he doesn't really say much, which is okay. But, you know, I'm sure he has insight. So it's not a conversation at all. And this is 49 minutes with a lady who is an expert on the Los Zetas. So for people that are paying attention to the cartels in Mexico, they're super interesting, and it is possible. It's difficult, but it is possible to track, you know, to keep track of all of them, because there's a lot, but they replaced each other. So there's been a lot over time, but at the one time, there's only usually 5 at a time or less. So the Zetas were special operations trained by military and police who were military and police, and eventually in southern Mexico kind of got bribed and taken away from the military police and started working for the Gulf, forget, some cartel, and then kind of partnered up with that cartel being their strong arms and their enforcement, and then eventually becoming their facilitators for traffic up through the border with the United States. And at some point, the Zetas just said, yeah, we're our own gang now. And we're very powerful because they were going at it systematically with awareness of systems that just the old cartels never bothered with. So anyway, pretty interesting 49-minute conversation about their influence. Not the best. Like I say, I can only give this one maybe a 7 out of 10, even though the topic is really interesting. There's just so many pieces that they don't go down tangents where they could have. If it was like an hour and a half or 3-hour conversation, it would be epic. Anyway. Let's see. Then we've got the Tony and the crew from Guns and Gear podcast. They had Derek on from KidSafe. So a little bit different, having a guest on and interviewing them. That happens on Tuesday evenings. I didn't listen to this one, so I don't know why it showed up on my thing. Sometimes if you watch something and the next video rolls over. Shit, somebody knocking off fireworks? Where are you at, Mello? I think she's outside. You're okay? Oh, no, she's inside already. Somebody's knocking off fireworks. She did pretty good. She had to sit here with me all night, but she did pretty good through the fireworks. Anyway, I sometimes watch Armed Attorneys, but I didn't watch it this week. Foss posted a review of this Effin Grow. So an Effin Grow EF123. I kind of like it. I would want to throw it. It looks like a knife I would throw. Let's see. We did a review of the dog cleaning kit there. We had Jeff doing something from... Oh, he went up to the roof of a hotel. Oh, shit, I shouldn't have done that. He went to the roof of a hotel in Seattle. All right, I got to go find where we came from. Hold on. There it is. Hillbilly had his members-only chat. Gizzard had his members-only chat. This is the California Rifle and Pistol Association. They don't do very many videos, but this was them doing a 20-minute conversation about Chevron. And I figured I'd watch that one because I don't watch too much California Rifle and Pistol Association things. And I haven't heard a good, concise exploration of how Chevron is going to help guns yet. So I think this did a pretty good job. Speaking of California, Mr. Knives is joining us from the state that looks like a 30-round AR mag. Actually, it looks like a 30-round AK mag. Welcome. Let's see. It's possible at the Gun Rights Policy Conference, if I have the time, I could book up and say hey to Mr. Knives again. If I was taking Mr. Knives out to eat someplace, where would we go to eat? Where would you take Mr. Knives to eat? You can leave a comment with where you would take Mr. Knives to eat in September at the Gun Rights Policy Conference. It looks like we now have more people watching from X than over here. So here's the X challenge. Be the first person to comment from X, and then you have the bragging rights that you're like one of 3 people to ever comment from X. But Barbecue is saying Chevron isn't going to help guns. The abolishing of Chevron is what will help guns. Well, yeah, of course. But I'm saying since Chevron deference case really wasn't about guns at all. And it's not necessarily apparent to everybody how the executive branch getting their hands slapped in Chevron is going to be applicable to the gun stuff. But I think that's just because we have yet to see all the ways that we can now sue, I guess, or now bring to light injustices. There is an option to suing. Suing is fun, and it makes a bunch of money because you can bring in tens of millions of dollars. We see this. You can bring in millions of dollars and put out hundreds of dollar lawsuits, and then every once in a while you have to take a lawsuit through. So I'm not saying they're not cheap, but it's cheap fishing. Like you can throw a lot of bait in the water for nothing. and then every once in a while it costs you money to reel it in. But that whole time you're just scooping in money from people who want to see lawsuits happen. But there is an option, and that option is to petition representatives to actually hire representatives, or like not hire, but vote in representatives that run on actual policies that we care about, and to see new laws pushed and bills pushed. Because even if a bill doesn't become a law, political strategists are aware of what the pulse of the nation is, and we could see a lot more work on those realms, which would then indicate to the political strategists that not only are gun owners willing to throw $30 at a lawsuit occasionally, but we're also doing this and we're also doing that, and we'll probably do this if you keep bugging us. So I think we could end this shit. And I think Chevron has a maybe it's just that it opens the gates for some stuff, or it removes a barrier for some stuff. Like I said, I'm still looking for a good explanation of how it's going to be useful for gun stuff specifically. All right, so then I think it was Monday I decided to play this. Maybe it was Tuesday, I don't remember. But I missed it when it was live. But Charles Heller here in Tucson had Michael Cargill on, and we listened to that together because I missed it live. So I just played it on my computer and did some work and ran a live while I did it. Charles don't care if I do it. I doubt Michael Cargill cares if I do it. Barbecue saying it didn't need to be about guns. By getting rid of Chevron, the bureaucracies can't make arbitrary regulations. Instead, Congress will have to start doing their jobs once again, for sure. And I don't think they don't do their job, but if we don't ask them to do stuff that's useful, then they're going to sit around wasting time, right? So that's where I guess I'm frustrated that our national level organizations don't see that, even though it's a tougher job. I mean, used to be lobbying. We used to have Lane LaPierre spend a bunch of money to go hang out with people, and the lobbying stuff was fairly effective, I guess, in the 90s. But, we have this other option, and that's lighting the fire under these representatives, or just becoming the representatives. We got Rebecca Schmoy out there. We've got Eli Crane here in Arizona. We have representatives, people that have taken their time and done the job of running and becoming elected. So, yeah, we have representatives doing work. We just have to we have more and more awareness of that and more motivation to support them, perhaps. Let's see. So then next up is on Tuesday, I did the Tuesday workshop to help out WTTA. They had asked me and I guess a whole bunch of other people to evaluate this mental health survey. So Barbecue jumped in and DJ jumped in, and we chatted about essentially a mental health plan that Walk the Talk America has proposed for, how did they put it? Not intervention, but awareness or informational. So I'm still not, I think they said it was going to be online, but I'm not sure the point, I guess, or who's going to be pointed in that direction, like what it's for, how it's to be used. But I think we had a fairly useful hour-long discussion about the topic of suicide awareness and mental health. I guess mental health awareness and suicide prevention. Outside the realm of Brooke's show, which most of the time gets the attention because she's the only one consistently talking about it. And with Walk Talk America, while it's a focus of theirs, they also talk about the perception of mental health in the gun community, which is super valid and a tough one. And then the perception of gun owners and the mental health in the in the medical health profession. And again, valuable and very difficult for anybody else. What did I just do? Very difficult for anybody else to attempt. So, yeah, so we spent an hour working on that. Barbecue did an Every Second Matters thing, which was mostly at Thunder on the Prairie. Pretty neat. One, he took the time to do it while he was at Thunder on the Prairie. How many other people bother to do stuff like this when they go places? Then he did it, right? So he actually did enough video to accomplish it, and then he edited it. And I've done a lot of shit where I've prepped for something and did a bunch of the work and then never had a chance to edit it and then forgot about it completely. So that's a lot of effort there. I appreciate it. and he included a bunch of people, and I don't know how many of them were willing or not to jump in on it, but it's keeping a awareness campaign alive that isn't propped up by anything at all other than people's interest in keeping the campaign alive. I find that fascinating. It started in 2013. There's literally nobody involved since the beginning that has paid attention to it since the beginning. Like, not even me or anybody else that was in there at the beginning. Most people have either completely abandoned it, won't even remember it unless you told them about it, or just make a allusion to it once in a while. So much appreciated to see people who consistently focus and use the awareness campaign for what its job is, to keep people together, united, and aware of each other, so that when our back's against the wall, we're not alone and desperate. We've had people that we have awareness of and a respect for, and a contact information to, and people like Gizzard Show, people like She Fires, people like Brooke Cheney, people like Barbecue, people like Gizzard, or you say Gizzard, people like Christmas M40, who are keeping communities alive by presenting shows. We got Hillbilly, the whole Georgia Shooting Connection people. All of these are communities that are kept alive by real, authentic people without some fancy goal or some bullshit concept. They're just regular people keeping a community together. And people that don't value that is because they can't profit on it or something. Like, because the people, anybody who's paying attention understands that's what we are. When we just celebrated a holiday based on a bunch of people getting together in a bar and getting pissed off. So the equivalent of those bars are the conversations that happen on these live shows. Oh, let's see. Barbecue says, every person I asked said yes without hesitation. Right on. All right, so thanks again for posting that one, though. It's pretty cool. Let's see. Then we've got the weekly wrap-up, which was last week. I don't know why I put that on there. Probably I was putting this one together. Dragon Man's new car garage is finished. It's pretty much ready to go, and he's already got like 12 of the cars in there, 13 of the cars in there. I don't like the way he's done it, so we're going to see. Hopefully he changes it. But essentially, he just shoved all his cars in there. So one, I'd like to see more room for his pumps and his other stuff that he's undoubtedly going to put in there. But it just doesn't look like there's enough room to walk around the cars and enjoy them. I would leave at least 2 cars out of that row so that the cars can be that much further apart from each other. But I ain't Dragon Man. I guess he can put his cars away the way he wants to put his cars away, I guess. Then we've got Gun Owners Radio. They do a show on Sundays, and this week they left it up. So you can join Mr. Knives and Mike White, who is sometimes out here, and the others who join us on Sunday to listen while San Diego County Gun Owners hosts a live conversation on the radio, and they stream that broadcast to YouTube pretty much every week. They also pay attention to what's going on in the comments more and more, so it's very interactive. No, I shouldn't say it. It is an interactive show, getting more interactive. It's not quite very interactive, but definitely one of the fun things to listen to. It usually starts up right in the middle of She Fires, I think. So I'm listening to She Fires usually, and if I'm around, and then I join in on this one like half an hour into it or something. There's She Fires, so she had a chat this week about holsters. I just didn't even participate because holsters are essentially like talking about grip angles or stupid optics cutouts. It's useless. Here's the deal. Everybody gets their gun, especially these adult gun owners. You're going to get your gun, and then you're going to get a holster, and then you're not going to be satisfied, and you're going to get another gun and another holster, and then you're going to repeat that a bunch of times. So you're either going to be that person, or it'll be this alteration. You buy a gun, and then you buy a holster, and then you buy another holster, and then you buy another gun, and then another holster. Or maybe you go, I'm going to buy a gun, and then a holster, and then another gun, and another gun, and a holster. But I guarantee you, unless you're the one gun guy, or that chick who only buys one gun ever, then you're going to buy more than one gun, you're going to buy more than one holster. So by that law that everyone knows is the way that it goes, you're going to talk about it. So listening to people talk about their first holsters, it's a thing. It's like listening to a bunch of kids talking about going through puberty or something. Like, you know, it happens. They got to talk about it, but I don't got to listen. So I listened to that one, but listening to people talk about holsters is like listening to people talk about what underpants they like to wear. Like, I could care less. And it's hardly interesting. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, She Fires actually hosts an actual conversation about it. So there's not a lot of fights going on. On some chats, you'll get people with different points of view and they hate each other, or they'd rather fight with each other than just talk. So then you get into fights about the different holsters and shit. So at least it doesn't degrade to that in there. She doesn't host that kind of chat. But it is not fun for me to listen to a bunch of people that talk about their holsters. But I'm sure if you are still worrying about holsters, then it might be fun. Let's see. DJ saying the only extras I have are ones I got for free or $1 at gun shows. Well, yeah. I mean, we're all different levels of cheap. Some people don't care about money. I mean, maybe you don't got one of them jobs, but I definitely know people that don't care about money. And, you know, they'll spend $20 like water. They don't give a shit about spending $20, $50. They'll go into a gun show and spend a couple of $100 and not care, right? So when you're at that level, you're got your new gun and it's your new thing. And maybe you watch some video and some guy says this is the shit, and then you watch some other video and some lady says this one's the way to go. You don't know, so you're going to go buy both. But then there's other people like me and DJ, it sounds like, who are like, oh, everything in this bin is $1. Well, I've never had one of these holsters before, but now for $1 I can try it out. I do that constantly. I mean, I have more holsters than anybody. That's why I don't care about talking about this. I just solved this problem by buying every holster there is. Not new fancy holsters, but every style of holster that exists. Plus, I grew up. So that's the other thing, is these are adult gun owners talking about holsters. I had more holsters than most of y'all have and will ever have when I was a little kid. I had holsters for all of my toy guns because I could go to gun shows and buy holsters all day long. And there's always been Uncle Mike's, and there's always been somebody made a leather holster and they're selling it for $1 to a kid. So I've had just boxes and boxes of holsters my whole life. People that buy a gun and go, oh crap, now I got to buy a holster. Oh crap, now I got to worry about ammo. Oh crap, now I got to think about how to shoot my gun. That's a whole different conversation for them. They're just now figuring out holsters. So anyway, it's just like horses, I guess. If you talk to some kid who grew up with horses and somebody who's just riding horses for the first time as an adult, that's pretty much where I'm at. These conversations are neat. Sometimes I'll try to add something, but what am I going to add to a holster conversation? Hey, skinny girl, here's the way to carry a holster. Pfft, no. Maybe I could tell some big fat lazy guy how to carry a holster that doesn't get in their way of their gut. But holsters are too personal, too intimate, and too plentiful. So just for me, this is the kind of conversations I just tune out for. And I was just seeing the old gun channels chat for going about holsters for 3 hours. Dude, like I say, if it's an entertaining conversation, like somebody comes in with some dumbass, like, you can't appendix carry, blah, blah, blah. And then everybody goes, well, I do appendix carry, so bite off your hose or whatever, some kind of retort. Then it would be a whole different kind of thing, because who cares what they're talking about there? It's entertaining to watch them fight about it. But like I say, She Fires isn't hosting that kind of show. So this is probably pretty useful. I don't know. DJ might have been there. Somebody else was probably in there listening. It's probably a good conversation. But anyway, that's why I don't get into the gun stuff so much anymore. One of the reasons I don't get into the gun stuff anymore. It's just too personal. And then if you throw in I don't know if it's happening now, but every once in a while, and I say that because it's happened so many times that I would have to sit down and write a book about how often it's happened. But holster manufacturers will hit the scene, and then they'll hook up with some influencer, either a writer or a photographer or a video person, and then they'll be all the rage for a little while. And especially if they give away a lot of free holsters, they'll be the rage for a while. And then, I don't know, the community keeps coming and going. So a bunch of people buy these holsters and either hate them, which is usually the case, or sometimes love them. And then they're around for a while, right? And now they're a thing. And then y'all will change. A bunch of people will come and go. And then a new holster comes along, and it's the cool rage holster for a while. So that aspect of it is another reason I'm burnt out on holsters. If it was just regular people talking about what they prefer, how they like to carry, okay, great. But like I say, there's the influence of the holster companies, and they're so fly by night. Every once in a while, there's something that's legit, but for the most part, they figure out a way to make something cheap and sell a lot of them because that's the only way to make money. So typically, if you're making something cheap and kind of to spec, just to pattern, how can it be custom? So it's one of those kind of things. Like usually it's like a new gun comes out, they're the first ones to make the gun or the holster for the gun, and they hooked up with somebody, so now they're the rage. Anyway, that's all another discussion, but that didn't come up in She Fire's chat that I'm aware of. Anyway, DJ said skipped it for the same reason. Oh, okay. So anyway, we'll move on. Patriot always posts good stuff. This one is an election one. I don't know where. I must have listened to it somewhere else because he also posted a good one. Or no, you know what it was? I think he was reacting to someone who posted it on somewhere. So I seen his name attached to it, but it wasn't his post. But anyway, Reagan did a 4th of July one. I don't remember. It must have been during his presidency. But it was about 3 minutes, and it was epic. It was really, really a good speech for a 4th of July speech. Paul must be kicking again because he posted Eye on the Target Radio. I think this is the second week in a row. So Eye on the Target Radio is back on Sundays. 12 views to that podcast. Then we got Suicide Prevention Saturday. Every Saturday, Brooke Cheney hosts a conversation to talk about mental health awareness and suicide prevention. And that's the only effort out there doing that. There's nothing else that's consistently focused on the only thing that is one, creating the most deaths with firearm. Literally all the deaths with firearm are from that. A couple of them are from murders, and then there's some accidents. But the vast majority, 2 out of every 3 that you hear about are from suicide. And of course, they're used against us as if that's violence, as if that represents all gun owners, or if as though that's a consequence of owning a gun. Hey, what are you doing? Come here. You're ruining the show. You ruined the show, and you're ruining it for the whole neighborhood. Come up here. Come up here. How bad can you be? Come here. Come here. Come here. Come up here. What's wrong with you? Horrible animal. Horrible animal. It's 10 o'clock at night. You're making that noise. I apologize for my horrible animal being a horrible boy. All right, I gave him a wiggle, a squeeze, and about 100 kisses. You should have the amount of attention to make him shut up for a little while. Totally forgot where I was at. Talking about Brooke and her show, probably. Nobody else is offering that kind of perspective or that kind of time to the issue. And that's the one thing that's being pummeled over our head. You think about it from another direction, 2 out of every 3 deaths with a firearm is suicide. Well, it's a hell of a lot of suicides. Who are those folks? Who is taking that? Who's making that decision? Who's being left? Who's being ignored by society to be on their own for that time? And we know that 22 a day is the number that they used to say. So somewhere in the neighborhood of dozens a day are veterans. So that's, again, policy. This is social issue. This is public policy issues. And this is why the anti-rights sons of bitches are full aware of that. And that's why they won't ever look at their own public policy failures to talk about the number of firearms deaths. They'll ignore the suicide and suggest that it's an epidemic because they literally pay the doctors who will tell them anything they want. So they'd say, hey, doctors, say it's an epidemic. And the doctors say, here's the cost for that. And then as soon as they write the check, they say, here, it's an epidemic. They have police, not sheriffs, but they have police that they appoint who will comply with saying that it's violence is an issue of crime. And so they get away with talking about it being a health thing and get away with talking about it being a criminal And let me know if this is working again. Let's see. So when did the thing go out? Is it good or no? Okay, thanks. They want it to be recognized as a health epidemic because then they can enact any gun control they want through executive fiat rather than needing a legislative branch to do so. No, that's a great point. That's another valid reason why they go with that approach. But then again, thanks to everybody who's joining live, because otherwise I would have never known my mic went out. And I've done this show plenty of times where like the mic went out for like half an hour. I had no idea. Okay, so what was DJ saying? What do you do, Knives? He said he'd take you out for a meal and Operation Interwaves. I don't know what that means. But yeah, let us know where if I go out to gun rights policy, which is not a done deal, but it's looking better and better. And I only want to go to gun rights policy to go hang out with everybody and see what's up. And hopefully they'll change it. Hopefully they'll modernize it and it'll be better. They got what's his face running the organization now, so maybe they'll finally recognize that GRPC is dying because I shouldn't say dying, but it's dwindling because it's not new anymore. And it's not vibrant, so maybe they'll change it around. I'll go because there's a chance, not any chance I have, or any confidence I have, but there's a potential chance that that'll change. But I wouldn't mind going to California again, hanging out with people I know from California, which doesn't happen that often. And I like San Diego a lot. I'm a big fan of San Diego now. But what is that, about 2 hours from Knives or something like that? Depending on how it goes and if I go. I could definitely be talked on booking up back to LA. I like LA a lot. Knives is in a good part of town. And then that would give me a chance to go hang out in Malibu where I like to go. But it's money, so I don't know if I'm going to do all that. But let's say I do all that. Where would I take Mr. Knives to go eat? Assuming Mr. Knives wants to go, where would we go eating? You can give me suggestions over here in the chat. Even if you're on X, people who are listening on X, and they outnumber the people on YouTube right now. That's what's happening. So I don't know, Gizzard, he puts on an X. Let Brooke know that she should be streaming on X because you get just as many viewers, if not more, on X. What am I looking for? Oh, I'm just looking for my YouTube. We're getting close to the end of the show here, but I'm using my history from last week to kind of use as notes for the show this week. But we're pretty much already on Saturday, I think. Oh my goodness, $5.30 for gas. It's more like $3.40 here. It kind of just went down to $3.40. Oops, dang it. Come on. Act like I've never been in here before. Now do this. There we go. So all I did is click on history. And you can scroll down through history. Oh, did I mention this one? The David Yamane was on with Riding Shotgun with Charlie and Meet the Pressers. I think I missed that one. Let me zoom in on this, if it'll zoom. Well, that got weird. Okay. That zoomed in so much that you can't even read anything. Stupid. There we go. That's a good one. All right, so we had suicide prevention Saturday. It looks like the S2 Underground did another update. Gotten hot or cold. This guy is pretty good non-biased intel, but at the same time, he's super biased. So it's a nice alternative to other news, and it's brief. It's concise. So it's worth checking out. And then there'll be technical information about communications, mostly radio, but other methods of communication. So S2 Underground's a great resource for that. We had a tactical quiz on Saturday, horribly bombed. I didn't like it. I just got this new 90s trivia game. I thought it would be good, but it was not. And I think that might be about it, because now we're getting into last week. So there you go. Let's see. Gizzard says he gets way more followers on X, 385 followers. Oh, I see what you're saying. You get more viewers on X than on Facebook, and you've got, what, 1/3 of the subscribers on X? Yeah, very cool. X is the new Instagram. Instagram was kind of hot there from like 15 to 17, 18. We're in that realm. We're in that era. This is the X era. There's a couple of reasons why, if somebody wants to get into the nerdy reasons, but there's some reasons why which are making it lucrative, I guess is the way to say it for people. Knives is taken off. So, well, with that, I guess we'll start wrapping up. Thanks everybody for joining us, especially people that join us or that participate live. I don't like programming. I'm not doing this for people to sit back and be entertained. I'm really doing it most weeks. Is the effort is the putting all the links into a list and posting that list around the internet. That's my goal. People like Brooke Cheney don't do that. She just doesn't have the time or maybe the interest to do something like that. Some of the other projects probably understand that concept of linking. I shouldn't say Brooke doesn't understand that concept, but again, most of the people I post or link to just don't have the resources or the facilities to repost their stuff all over the internet. And I'm not doing it all over the internet, but we do take the information that we just talked about tonight each week and post that here on YouTube. We post it on Substack and on Patreon, but then it also gets turned into a podcast, and that means it gets linked onto what is it called? Like iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, some of the big platforms out there. And our goal is to not just talk for an hour each Saturday, but this is a portion of it because we need this audio for the podcast, and it gives us a chance to get together in the middle of the night on a Friday to all meet up. But it's also, the real goal here is to keep linking those hyperlinks, because each time we create a hyperlink, that's one more little string with a knot on it in this giant web that they call the internet. So what we're doing is we're sewing that web a little bit more and the things that we value here. And when I say we, I mean the people that are joining us live, but really the Patreons, the people that make it possible for me to spend time every Friday on this. Before, it was because they were literally paying the bills to let us keep going. I was putting a lot of money on credit cards. Now that I'm paying off those credit cards and I can do whatever I'm not quite to where I can do whatever I want with my time. The Patreons are giving me the ability to focus on this stuff without regret. And I really do value that, like literally value that. The people that have been Patreons for a long time are the reasons that we're still here. We don't get supported by any gun shops or any money in the industry. We don't have any sugar daddies. We don't ask people for sponsorship money. Patreons are just regular people. Drop in a box of ammo, a cup of coffee. A couple of people are still buying doing the $25 option. So essentially buying us lunch once a week. And trust me, when I'm traveling and I'm driving around, I get people all the time. Oh, let me buy you lunch. Let me buy you lunch. Let me buy you lunch. I don't know why, because maybe I don't know why. But when you're doing stuff the same way, doing it online, you ask somebody, hey, you want to buy me lunch? Go over to Patreon and drop it on Patreon. Let that accumulate and let me pay off a bill, right? Let me keep doing this. For a while there, I was drowning in credit card bills. It was horrible. So anyway, the Patreons are capitalists who take their hard-earned money. Nobody's giving money away to anybody. And they drop it on our projects. And that keeps our 3 servers going, which would not have existed through the last 2 years. They would have been gone, which means all those websites and all that effort would have been offline. And that stayed online this whole time. And they've made it possible for us to spend the time with the interviews that we've done and with this Friday show and with the Tuesday workshops. Ideally, we get more Patreons on board, and we'll bring back the tactical quiz. We can bring back the traveling portion of the show where we talk about all our adventures and we talk about the places that we've been, the museums and that kind of thing. And then I'd really like to bring back the interviews, have more interviews every Monday. But I've got massive bills I've still got to pay, and I've got ways to pay those bills. So when it comes to a practical decision of what I'm going to spend my time on, it's paying off those bills. So in the future, yeah, I'll probably be independently wealthy and I'll come do it, this stuff as a hobby. But if you'd like to see that happen or facilitate that happening and you're a capitalist, jump on our Patreon. We've got less than 100 people over there right now. You could be one of the few that keeps this project growing, or buy something from the store. We do sell a bunch of stuff at the store. That being said, thanks to Gizzard for posting links to the store every week. It is much appreciated. Gizzard says people on X actually watch live streams. Well, I'm not 100% sure of that. I mean, they must be, because it says there's a bunch of people watching, but they never comment, and that freaks me out. It really freaks me out. You would think that people would be involved in the thing that they're watching, but not all are. So again, thanks to Chris out there. Thanks to Mr. Knives, who was here, Gizzard, and DJ, Barbecue, and who am I missing? Earlier we had... Oh, Gunmetal Guy. I don't know if I said hey to you earlier. Thanks for joining us. Agorizer was the other one I was thinking of. And G23 stopped in earlier as well. Christmas740 said hey. And that's another reason why people on Twitter are scared to say hey, because they don't want to be called out for watching the show, maybe. All right, with that, we'll wrap it up. We'll throw a commercial up here. And what do we got next? We'll probably be going live with Tony tomorrow. I think he's back. He was in Pennsylvania last week. I think he's back. We'll have a show. And then Brooke will be live tomorrow afternoon. Is she live yet, or does she have a show? Can I link to it? Let me just take a second to go see if I can link to her show, if it is. If not, Hillbilly does a show. There won't be an overnight because Foss refuses to do that there won't be an overnight because he refuses to do that every week. But there probably will be a She Fires on Sunday, and then all those other shows I mentioned on Sunday. I am looking at the wrong window, so let me jump back over here and see if she has already posted it. I can link to Brooke's show, but she has not. So I won't link to anything. I'll just wrap it up. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining us. And if you're on the listening on a podcast, I encourage you to jump over to wherever it is you get your podcast from, and spend a minute or two, give us a positive comment, a like, or a negative comment. I don't care. Just give us a comment and a like or a thumb up or a heart or whatever it might be. And then stay there and do that for the other shows that you value. I tell you, that interaction on the podcast platforms is the most valuable thing you can do in 2024 for content creators who use the podcast platforms. Obviously, if they're not over there, they could care less. But those people that are creating podcasts and taking the time and effort to push it over to the podcast platforms, we get very, very little feedback over there. So those kind of feedback mechanisms mean a lot. It's always fun for me, the human, to hear comments over here on YouTube, because I know that there's people out there and I can communicate with you. But on those platforms, that's the mechanics. That's the mechanisms of the internet. That's the biggest weight you can offer.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
This is Earl Benson, reporting from downtown Topeka, where Gizzard Gary is rampaging through the city. Authorities have asked the public to stay indoors. They believe he will tire soon and need a nap. Gizzard Gary can normally be seen on Fowl Territory, Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central. Wednesday, 8 p.m. for the channel members chat. Stay safe and give him the bird. Earl Benson signing off.
Captain, a vessel approaching.
On screen.
We're being hailed.
Every weekend over at PureWebsites.com, our online store, we have free Patch Friday. And that means that every order placed on our store on Fridays is going to include at least one free patch. So that's every order with no coupons, no minimum order, no codes needed. You place the order on Friday, and when it arrives to you, it's going to have at least one free patch. Your support means a lot to us, financial support is critical. So thanks again to the people who keep us online through purchases at gearwebsites.com.